2026 has been an absolutely stacked year for Switch and Switch 2. We got remakes, sequels, weird little indie gems, and a couple of games nobody saw coming. I played through as much as I could, and today I'm counting down my top 20 picks of the year so far. Let's get into it. Splatoon Raiders flips the usual multiplayer-first Splatoon formula on its head and goes full single-player. And honestly, it works way better than I expected. You play as an Inkling or Octoling mechanic hanging out with the Deep Cut crew, exploring the Spiralite Islands while raiding for loot. Think Monster Hunter, but dipped in ink. You're constantly picking up new weapons, upgrading them at your hideout ship, crafting gadgets from enemy parts, and tackling raid missions that scale in difficulty, whether you're solo or teaming up with 3 friends. There's a real sense of progression here. Everything from your weapon rarity to your gear unlocks at a steady pace that never feels overwhelming. The combat still has that satisfying ink-based movement, and shooting Splatoon is known for, just now wrapped around boss fights and looter mechanics. The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales. The gameplay mixes exploration with light combat and environmental puzzles, and it constantly rewards curiosity. Poking around corners usually gets you something useful. What stands out is the pacing. It never overstays its welcome in any one area before introducing a new mechanic or twist to keep things fresh. The world design has a storybook quality to it. Every location feels handcrafted with its own personality and secrets tucked away. Combat is simple but satisfying. Nothing overly complex, just enough to keep encounters engaging without slowing down the adventure. The narrative unfolds gradually, dropping hints about a bigger mystery tied to Elliot's journey without ever front-loading exposition. It's the kind of game you can just sink into for an afternoon, cozy but never boring, and it's a solid pick if you want something narrative-focused without a huge time commitment.
Everything again.
You still have a chance to save us all.
Please, you have to live.
Star Fox. You're piloting the R-Wing, Landmaster tank, and Blue Marine sub through rail shooter levels across the Lilat system, blasting through enemy squadrons and boss encounters while trying to stop Andross. The core gameplay is exactly what you remember. Barrel rolls, charged shots, somersaults, all of it feels tight and responsive on Switch 2 hardware. What's new here is a full visual overhaul, redesigned characters, voiced cutscenes, an orchestral score, and expanded online multiplayer with team-based modes and game chat support. There are also new gameplay features and additional content sprinkled into the classic mission structure, so even if you've played 64 a dozen times, there's fresh stuff to find. It's a love letter to the original wrapped in a modern shell, simple to pick up but still rewarding when you're chasing better ranks and hidden paths through each stage. Dench Attack. You play as Emmy, a former ramen delivery driver turned Dench Attacker, which basically means you're riding a giant train like it's a skateboard through a colorful, climate-ravaged version of Japan sealed under domes. The core gameplay is on rails. Your train barrels forward automatically, and it's your job to boost around corners, jump obstacles, drift, wall ride, and pull off tricks to keep your run stylish and fast. Across 67 stages spanning 9 regions, you're diving through volcanoes, grinding across rooftops, and racing rival trains, with new mechanics constantly being added to keep things from getting stale. It's got serious jet-set radio and crazy taxi energy, loud, colorful, and dripping with early 2000s arcade vibes. The story involves madcap bosses and a rebellion against a mega-corporation controlling the trains. But honestly, you're here for the movement, not the plot. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth picks up right where the first remake left off, sending Cloud and the gang out of Midgar and into the wider world for the first time. This is where the game really opens up. Big open regions to explore, chocobos to catch and ride, side quests tied to your party members that deepen their relationships, and a minigame count that's honestly a little ridiculous, in a good way. Combat keeps the real-time action mixed with ATB command menus from Remake, but adds more synergy abilities between characters, letting you chain combos and support moves together in some genuinely flashy fights. The story follows the crew as they track Sephiroth across the continent, and without spoiling anything, it hits some of the most iconic beats from the original 1997 game while expanding character moments that used to be a few lines of dialogue into full scenes. If you grew up on Geometry Wars, Sektori is going to hit you right in the nostalgia while somehow feeling completely fresh. It's a twin-stick shooter where you pilot a small ship through compact arenas, blasting waves of enemies while dodging a storm of bullets. And the whole thing is set to hard-hitting techno music that syncs with the action. The 5-world campaign constantly reshapes the battlefield itself. Stages morph and change layout mid-run, and bosses can shift depending on which stage you fight them in, so nothing ever feels repetitive. You earn upgrades from downed enemies, letting you build out your ship with more speed, stronger weapons, shields, or score bonuses, and you can lean into different playstyles depending on what you pick up. There's no long tutorial or heavy story here. It's just you, your ship, and an increasingly intense wall of enemies.
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. You're punching Nazis, cracking whips, solving environmental puzzles, and sneaking through ancient ruins across gorgeous, detailed locations spanning the globe. The gameplay blends stealth, exploration, and combat. You can go in guns blazing with your fists and whatever's lying around, or you can quietly work your way past guards using shadows and distractions. Puzzle design leans on your journal, which fills up with notes, sketches, and clues as you progress, encouraging you to actually pay attention to your surroundings instead of just following a marker. The whip isn't just for combat either. It's used constantly for traversal, swinging across gaps and pulling objects toward you. What really sells it is the atmosphere. Every location feels like a genuine archaeological adventure. Tombs, temples, and hidden chambers packed with secrets and history. The sequel to Planet of Lana takes everything that made the original special and expands it into a longer, more emotionally heavy journey. You're guiding Lana and her companion Mui through gorgeous, hand-painted environments, solving physics-based puzzles that require you to coordinate between the two characters, sometimes having Mui distract enemies while Lana sneaks past, other times using him to reach places she can't access alone. This time around, Lana has more movement options too. Wall jumps, run slides, and generally faster traversal that makes the platforming segments feel more dynamic than before. New puzzle types show up as well, including sequences where you're hypnotizing creatures or controlling hybrid robots to solve environmental challenges, plus entirely new underwater chapters that change up the pacing. Stealth sections return too, requiring patience and timing rather than combat to get past danger. Vampire Crawlers, the Turbo Wildcard from Vampire Survivors. Instead of an overhead view with enemies swarming you in real time, you're now exploring multi-floor dungeons in first person, playing cards that represent the classic weapons from the original game, like the whip and knife, to wipe out rows of enemies during battles. You build your deck as you go, gaining new cards and power-ups as you level up. And there's a fun rhythm to figuring out which mana costs to play in which order to trigger big combos. Characters function differently here too. Each one is tied to specific card colors and effectively becomes part of your deck strategy rather than just a starting loadout. Runs are quick and replayable, and dungeons are packed with secrets, treasure, and quirky interactions, including a shovel mechanic that lets you dig down to entirely new floors. It's a clever reinvention that still feels unmistakably like Vampire Survivors underneath the new coat of paint. Mouse P.I. for Hire. You play as Jack Pepper, a war hero turned detective investigating a missing persons case in the city of Mouseburg that spirals into corruption, kidnapping, and murder. The gameplay splits between investigation sections, where you're gathering clues and solving light puzzles, and fast-paced arena shootouts, where you're running, gunning, wall running, and double jumping your way through waves of armed rats and crooked cops. The hand-drawn rubber hose animation style is genuinely striking. Everything moves with that bouncy, exaggerated old cartoon charm. And it's all backed by a big band jazz soundtrack that fits the noir detective vibe perfectly. Weapons and power-ups lean into the cartoon logic too. Expect some creatively twisted takes on classic firearms. Movement is constant and encouraged. This isn't a cover shooter. You're meant to be weaving through chaos while picking enemies apart.
Elementalis wears its inspiration proudly. This is a top-down action-adventure that feels like a direct love letter to classic Zelda titles, specifically that Link's Awakening and Link to the Past era. You're on a journey to restore elemental balance to a dying world after your parents caused chaos by trying to capture the elements for themselves, and it's your job to fix what they broke. Gameplay revolves around exploring 8 distinct biomes, each hiding a temple with puzzles, secrets, and a boss guarding an element you need to progress. Combat mixes your sword and shield with elemental powers like fire, water, and electricity, letting you combine abilities to exploit enemy weaknesses in genuinely satisfying ways. As you restore each element, you unlock new traversal abilities that open up previously inaccessible parts of the map, that classic Metroidvania-style progression loop. Moonlight Peaks. You play as a young vampire trying to prove to your skeptical father that a life of compassion is possible, even for the undead. And you do that by settling into your family's abandoned homestead in a gothic, supernatural town full of werewolves, witches, and mermaids. The core loop is classic farming sim stuff, growing enchanted crops, raising magical livestock, building out your gothic farmstead. But it's layered with supernatural mechanics, like shape-shifting into other forms and learning witchcraft spells that help with farming and resource gathering. Beyond the farm, you've got fishing, foraging, potion crafting, and social activities like flower arranging, plus a full roster of romanceable townsfolk if you want to pursue relationships. There's also a collectible card game called Nocturna you can play against the locals for fun. Blueprints is one of those games that's genuinely hard to describe without giving too much away. But at its core, it's a puzzle exploration game where you're navigating a mysterious, ever-changing mansion, trying to uncover its secrets. Each day, you draft rooms to build out the mansion's layout, choosing from a selection of options that shift the possibilities of what you can find and where you can go. It blends roguelike structure with deep environmental puzzle solving. Every room might hide a clue, a mechanism, or a piece of a larger mystery that connects to everything else in the house. The game constantly rewards note-taking and paying close attention. Small details you spot early on can end up being crucial dozens of runs later. There's a real sense of discovery baked into every session. You're never quite sure what combination of rooms will lead you toward the manor's deepest secrets. Mio Memories in Orbit. You play as Mio, a small robot who wakes up with no memory in a decaying, overgrown spaceship called the Vessel, tasked with reactivating its AI caretakers known as the Pearls to save it from total shutdown. Movement and combat feel fluid right from the start. You'll use a grappling hook to evade enemies, launch orbs as ranged attacks, and eventually summon decoy clones to strike from unexpected angles. As you progress, you scavenge components to modify and upgrade Mio's abilities, letting you tailor her fighting style to whatever approach suits you best. Boss fights are a real highlight here. They're fast, creative, and genuinely fun to learn. The story unfolds gradually through lore tomes and environmental storytelling rather than heavy dialogue, piecing together Mio's forgotten past as you explore deeper into the Vessel. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. You play as a fisherman's son on the isolated island of Estard, and after discovering the Shrine of Mysteries, you and your friends get pulled back through time to uncover why your island ended up as the only landmass left in the world. Gameplay is classic turn-based Dragon Quest, exploring towns, recruiting party members, grinding through dungeons, and unlocking new areas by restoring lost lands from the past into the present. The vocation system returns too, letting you shift party members between different classes to learn new skills and abilities, giving you a lot of freedom in how you build your team. This version significantly streamlines the pacing compared to the original. The notoriously slow opening hours have been tightened up, and the search for tablets that drives the plot forward feels much less tedious.
Take that!
Pragmata. Set at a lunar research facility overtaken by hostile AI, you control Hugh, a stranded spacefarer, alongside Diana, a young android he rescues early on, and the two of them work together constantly throughout the game. Hugh handles the shooting and movement, using a jetpack to dodge attacks and reach distant platforms. But enemy robots are armored and basically immune to bullets on their own. That's where Diana comes in. She hacks into enemy systems in real time through a puzzle-like interface, disabling their defenses and exposing weak points that Hugh can then actually damage. It creates this constant back-and-forth rhythm between combat and puzzle solving that feels different from anything else out right now. Beyond the mechanics, the relationship between Hugh and Diana grows naturally as the story unfolds, giving the whole experience real emotional stakes on top of the sci-fi mystery of what happened at the station.
Take this! Oh, crap!
Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrade. This covers the Midgar section of the original 1997 game, expanded into a full-length RPG with real-time action combat blended with ATB command menus, letting you pause the action to select spells, items, and abilities mid-fight. Every character plays differently. Cloud's got heavy melee combos, Tifa's fast and punchy, Barrett's a ranged powerhouse, and switching between them on the fly during fights keeps combat feeling fresh throughout. The Midgar setting gets fleshed out way beyond what the original game showed. Side quests flesh out the slums, side characters get more depth, and there's an entire additional episode included here following Yuffie that adds a fresh perspective on the world outside the main story. Visually, it's a huge leap from the original PS1 game, while keeping the tone and iconic moments intact.
Not bad.
Mina the Hollower, a top-down action-adventure soaked in 8-bit visuals inspired by the Game Boy Color era of Zelda. Think Link's Awakening and Oracle of Seasons. You play as Mina, an inventor and member of the Hollowers Guild, summoned to Tenebrous Isle to restore the spark generators powering the land before it's consumed by darkness and monsters. The signature mechanic is Mina's ability to burrow underground, letting her dodge attacks, cross hazards, and access hidden areas. And you'll be leaning on it constantly, whether you're exploring or fighting. Combat centers around your whip, the Nightstar, which attacks in 4 directions, but you'll also collect an arsenal of sidearms and trinkets that let you customize your playstyle as you level up. The world is dense with secrets, side characters, and optional stories tucked into every corner of the island. Some funny, some surprisingly dark. Resident Evil Requiem brings survival horror back to its roots, while pushing the series' storytelling in a heavier, more psychological direction. Without spoiling the plot, you're dropped into a tense investigation that slowly spirals into something much darker, with the game leaning hard into atmosphere, limited resources, and that classic feeling of never having quite enough ammo or healing items to feel safe. Exploration is a big part of the experience. You're constantly backtracking through interconnected areas, solving environmental puzzles, and managing your inventory carefully, deciding what's worth carrying and what you can afford to leave behind. Combat is tense and deliberate rather than fast and action-heavy. Every encounter with an enemy feels like it actually matters, and running out of resources at the wrong moment can turn a manageable situation into a genuine crisis. Pokemon Pokopia is a relaxing life sim where you play as a Ditto that's taken on a human-like form, waking up in a withered, abandoned world where all the humans have vanished. Guided by Professor Tangrowth, your job is to slowly restore the land, watering ground, planting grass, and building habitats that naturally attract wild Pokemon to move in and call the area home. As Pokemon settle in, they teach Ditto new skills: watering, breaking rocks, surfing, gliding, letting you reshape more of the world and reach further out areas, all while unlocking new crafting and building options along the way. There's no battling or catching in the traditional sense. This is purely about creativity, exploration, and slowly bringing a dead world back to life at your own pace. Every biome feels distinct, with its own set of Pokemon, plants, and building materials. And there's a genuinely satisfying loop of gathering resources and watching your paradise grow. And that's my top 20 for 2026 so far. Huge year for Switch and Switch 2. Honestly, one of the best in a while. Let me know in the comments which of these you've played and which one I got wrong. If you enjoyed this, drop a like and subscribe for more Switch content. See you in the next one.